Welcome to the Gooder Podcast, where we talk with powerhouse women in CPG about their journeys to success. This episode is sponsored by Retail Voodoo, a brand development firm guiding mission-driven consumer brands to attract new and passionate consumer base, crush their categories through growth and innovation, and magnify their social and environmental impact. If your brand is in need of brand positioning, package design, or marketing activation, we are here to help. You can find more information at www.retail-voodoo.com.
Hi, Diana Freik here. I'm the host of the Gooder Podcast, where I get to talk with the powerhouse women in the food, beverage, and wellness categories about their journeys to success and their insights on the industry. This episode is brought to you by Retail Voodoo. Retail Voodoo is a brand development firm. Our clients include Starbucks, Kind, REI, PepsiCo, Derma-E, and other market leaders. We provide strategic brand and design services for leading brands in the food, wellness, and beverage categories. So if your goal is to increase market share, drive growth, or disrupt the marketplace with new and innovative ideas, give us a call and let's talk. My number, or actually our URL, you guys have heard this enough times, you probably already know it, retail-voodoo.com, or email me at info@retail-voodoo.com for more. Well, today I have the distinct pleasure of bringing Miss Rebecca Hamilton to this podcast. Rebecca is a second-generation owner and co-CEO at, do you go by WS Badger or just Badger now? I didn't even ask you that.
Badger is fine.
Okay, so second generation owner and co-CEO at Badger, a natural and organic personal care manufacturer known for its unique company philosophy, pioneering family-friendly benefits, and B Corp community engagement. In addition to her role as co-CEO, Rebecca leads marketing and sustainability initiatives. She's an advocate for issues concerning the environment, ingredient transparency, and societal change. Rebecca has spoken at the White House, addressed the UN Convention on Biological Diversity in support of organic and regenerative agriculture, testified before Congress on behalf of Safer Cosmetics, and attended Senate and House briefings on Capitol Hill in support of family-friendly workplace practices and chemical reform. Very, very busy human. Rebecca, welcome. Thank you for coming to the Gooder Podcast today.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. How are you? And where are you located today?
I'm located in Gilsum, New Hampshire, which is a rural town of 817 people in the southwest corner of New Hampshire. And I'm in Badger headquarters building. This is my office.
Yes. Okay. Well, so before we started recording, I asked you a little bit about how Expo was for you and the team, this big return back. And sounds to me like you had the same experience as a lot of us, just kind of like we're kind of reconnecting and maybe rebalancing ourselves and acclimating back to trade show. Is that, was the show good for everybody? Did you get to see all the people that you wanted to see?
Yeah, it was wild to be back. It was really good to see everyone. People had good energy and excitement, and we had a lot of new things to show as a brand. And so being there was a really positive experience.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, let's talk about your brand. The first question I like to ask all brand owners, regardless of where they are in the organization, is to tell us about the brand, Badger, and why it exists.
Well, we started our brand in 1995. My father at the time was a carpenter contractor. He built healthy, non-toxic houses for people who had allergies or sensitivities through the mid-'80s into the early 90s. But he was also a serial entrepreneur. So he had a business idea every day. And he was kind of a creative herbalist type as well. And so one of the winters, he had very cracked hands, and regular water-based lotions didn't really work to heal the cracks in his hands. And so he was going to sleep with olive oil soaked socks with shopping bags wrapped over it and rubber bands.
Yes.
Crinkle all night. And my mother eventually kicked him out of bed and said, "You've got to do better than that." And so he created a simple balm. This is actually the first product here in a tin.
Oh, cool.
with the idea that you've got badgers that dig the earth and it's for hardworking hands. And the vision wasn't to create a product that would be a leader in the natural products industry or a mission-driven company or anything like that. It was just create a simple product that works. And we evolved the business because our family cares about organic and sustainability and treating people well and having a positive impact in the world. And so Badger grew out of that one product that was just an effective product that works, designed for carpenters. And that's what led us to the business today.
Awesome. So awesome. We ourselves have worked with a number of multi-generational organizations, and I know that there is something special, that kind of thread that goes through the generations, whether it's second generation, third, fourth, or fifth generation. Can you tell us a little bit now? Obviously, you've probably been involved with the brand in many ways since you were wee, but what is it that keeps you, what has you staying there? What is it that you're so passionate about that makes you feel like you want to keep doing and growing Badger instead of maybe trying your own set of entrepreneurial creations?
Well, I do also have my own entrepreneurial creations as well.
Oh, you do?
So coming back to Expo for a moment.
Yeah.
This year was my 24th Expo, XOS. So I started going when I was 14. And I've gone almost every year since then. And I've worked in almost every department in my company, starting out working in production, working in shipping, customer service, sales at trade shows. And when I was a teenager, I worked there for summer jobs, but then I did outdoor education and worked on sailboats in the Caribbean and did a lot of traveling and did not expect to come back to the family business. But I found myself out at the University of Hawaii studying ethnobotany when I was in my mid-20s. I had some kind of vague vision of traveling around the world, maybe doing research, maybe teaching. And about halfway through that, realized that my best career opportunity is actually working for a natural products company with ingredient sourcing and product development and looking at traditional uses of plants and how that can be put into products and used for healing purposes. And so at the time, our company was pretty small, but I saw the opportunity to use our company, our family company, as a platform to create healing products and also for making a difference in the world. So, when I was young, I thought in order to have an impact, whether it's political or otherwise, I needed to go work for a nonprofit or NGO or something that would be politically active. But what I quickly realized is that a business can be politically active, even if it's nonpartisan, and people listen to businesses for better or worse. So if you're a business going to advocate for things that are not going to be in the best interest of the public, that's one thing. And if you're a business that is going to advocate for things on behalf of the public, that's really important, especially important. And you need that balance because businesses enact change, whether you like it or not. And so I kind of shifted what I was studying in college and started focusing on business and social activism and ended up kind of crafting my own degree around running product development and leading activism in my family's company. And then I came back to work here about 12 years ago.
Oh my goodness. Wow. There's so much in there, and of course I mentioned in your bio that Badger is a B Corp. Our firm is a B Corp as well. And we do our own share of activism. This podcast is a form of it as well, but always have been fans of business being a force for good, because you're right, businesses have such a sway because of the interactivity, especially on products like yours, where people are purchasing them and they're using them over and over. There's a messaging platform in that packaging and that purchase every single time that you have a way of connecting with the consumer in a different way than a political, like a PAC could, a political, any kind of political or not nonprofit can, because they're not in your closet every morning and they're not in your on your toothbrush or in your hair every morning. So I think that's really, really fantastic. And in addition to that, I went back to get my MBA. I'm in the middle of it, and the college that I chose, or the university that I chose, builds environmental and social justice into the foundational elements of the MBA program. So as we're doing all of our learnings and our forecastings, everything is benchmarked against what is the net impact to the community and to cultures and that sort of thing. So I love that. I feel almost like I've met a kindred spirit, but you're a little bit ahead of me in regards to your progress and impact. Maybe one day when I grow up, I can have a very similar impact as you. Maybe can you tell us a little bit? I've interviewed a few other women that have grown up in their family business. Can you talk about maybe some of those early days when you say you've done everything, and you said since you've been a teen, we're talking everything from packing and cleaning and answering phones and everything in between?
Yeah. I mean, I even was the Badger cook for a summer.
You were?
Everyone.
Oh my gosh, how fun was that? Oh, or maybe not.
I mean, no, I thought that was one of my favorite jobs. It's just, you make people happy when you make food for them. So it's like a positive place to be. And
absolutely
see the value that it has on the community that you're building in the company.
Absolutely. And feeding people is an act of love, right? It is an act of love in and of itself. And there's an exchange there when you make something for somebody. So I can absolutely see that, especially based off of your DNA. That's so great. When you think back to your time, you had the pivotal moment while you were in school. Was there any time along your journey within the company earlier on where you had an aha that you knew this was the tool, this was the brand that you were going to use as a tool to create a change that you wanted to, or in some way, shape, or form, that this was the place that you were going to be, not simply because you got to make a great product or have an impact, but it was just, that was the beacon?
Well, I came back into the business with an intention to have it be a tool for advocacy.
Gotcha.
Healing products. So, I came in knowing that was a possibility and trying to think about ways that I could support that in the company and using the company as a platform to enact positive change. So I don't think that it was necessarily later on that there was a aha.
Gotcha.
When I decided to come back to it, I recognized the value that a company brand that people recognize has in impacting social and environmental change.
Gotcha.
Not just from the actions where we've often as a company wanted to lead by example or just make choices as a company that we feel are good and positive. And then also being a voice for advocacy work that we feel are important or mission aligned.
Yeah. Well, and there are a number, right? I spent some time investigating your website to everything from diversity legislation, labor practices, product safety. I am particular, and your B Corp status is absolutely in alignment with that. And I understand you were foundational in making that happen in your state. Was there an impact at school, or was there something external that kind of helped all of this solidify? Was there a conversation that you had? Where did the fire come from that you were going to come back in and use this tool? Or just has it been part of your family DNA and it's just natural and innate?
I think that I personally had a passion to be able to have an impact with whatever choices I'm making professionally. And when I was in college, when I shifted from studying ethnobotany, which is both the medicinal but also the ecological impacts of how people use plants. And so when I shifted my focus, the two things that I had that I took on additionally besides business was I enrolled in a program that was called the Citizen Scholar Program. And each year we took on different coursework, which included things like organizing, policy, activism, and structurally, how do you enact change? And then the second one was around supply chain advocacy. And I specifically worked on helping my town to become the fourth fair trade town in the country, working with Fair Trade USA, looking at how we can support ethical supply chains and purchasing practices, both as an individual and also as a company. And so when I came back into Badger, I came back having just worked on fair trade sourcing and policy around fair trade, and then also advocacy policy work.
Yeah.
From an academic standpoint that I could bring
in. Just that exposure, I mean, and what's possible. It's so interesting where people get their inspiration from. I had just a the luck of the gods, as I'll call it, in 1999 to work on a project with Jane Goodall, and she's kind of what put the torch underneath me. But her torch was more like, I don't need to change the world by doing 5 million things. I can just do one thing. And of course, you start with the one thing, and then pretty soon you're doing 5 million because you can't help yourself when you start going that direction. But, that was my fire. So I love hearing that school kind of brought everything that it was already part of you together and just pointed you in a direction and gave you some more tools. Further of that, now I'm particularly interested in learning more about the National Women's Business Council and the work that you're doing there. And in particular, because this podcast is really elevating women, and maybe there's, I've not heard of the National Women's Business Council and its impact on women in business. So can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so this is something I didn't know about until I was invited to become a member. Oh. And so this is a federal organization. It's funded by taxpayer dollars, and it was created to support women across the country in becoming entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs. Oh. So there's a mandate, and that is that we have members that are bipartisan. So half that represent Republican, half that represent Democratic. And they're either women who are business leaders from each of the different states, and they look at having, not every state, but they try and get representatives from across the country. And the members are nominated by their senators or representatives in their state.
Oh, really?
Senators, and then vetted after you go through a whole application process. And so each of the women, they're either business leaders or they represent a women's business organization. And then we're separated out into 3 subgroups that are working subgroups with staff support, federal staff support. And so I'm on the rural business subcommittee. There's also one on finance, and then there's one on technology, STEM. And so on my committee, we look specifically at what issues impact women in rural areas and what are the roadblocks to women becoming successful entrepreneurs in rural areas. And we hold roundtables across the country in rural areas. We gather insights from women all over the country. And then we also look at kind of what are the most pressing issues. And then we make recommendations either for current policy, or we create our own recommendations that aren't part of current policy. And then those recommendations officially go to Congress and to the president.
And is there an initiative? You'll have to remind me because I didn't read your full bio, and you are involved in so many different activities right now in this regard. Is this also with the initiatives around family? Or is that a different organization that you're working with on the kind of, is it family rights, working moms, something along that line?
I work with several organizations. So I work with the American Sustainable Business Council. And we've specifically been working on paid family medical leave. I've worked with Business for a Fair Minimum Wage, and we specifically work on raising the minimum wage federally. New Hampshire is a 725 state in the sense that we have followed federal regulations on what the minimum wage is. Only state in New England that hasn't raised their own state minimum wage. And so I've specifically been advocated for raising the federal minimum wage, which would, I'm sure.
I see.
And then I work with the Campaign for Safe Cosmetics and the Breast Cancer Prevention Fund on legislation connected to safer cosmetics,
I
which we
see.
haven't updated cosmetic regulations since the 1930s. So you can
Oh,
imagine
you're kidding.
all the things that have changed since the 1930s, and the fact that we don't have updated regulations, it's a little bit disconcerting. And being a member of the cosmetic industry, we take a lot of care in the products that we create and having really high bar standards, but we don't feel like that's what's being done across the industry, and that we need regulations to kind of catch up with times.
Yeah, and there are some initiatives or organizations that are really working with smaller brands. I mean, much smaller than yours. A lot of startup brands that are working on the efficacy, both efficacy and safety of their products, but the influence needs to be higher up into the mass. And I know you're in the middle, probably trying to influence up, I'm guessing, as best you can. I'm curious, when I'm thinking of all of this work that you're doing, and I know that you have a co-CEO. So that must be the reason why there are two of you based off of how much you have on your plate. Can you share a little bit about how, there are a lot of people out there, men and women, who want to be participating at some level, maybe not as much as you, but feel like they're getting pulled. Do you have any advice to those people that are wanting to move forward on how they can be an advocate and still be a good business owner and brand steward and leader within their organization?
Well, I think becoming a member of an organization that is on the ground floor and trying to support mission-aligned activities is a really great way to start. So I mentioned the American Sustainable Business Council. They regularly bring us opportunities where they think our voice can help in pushing legislation forward. And so they'll set up lobby days, they'll set up meetings at the White House, they'll set up, put my name forward for congressional hearings. And so there's certainly work that has to be done. Like if my name is put forward for a congressional hearing, I have to prepare a statement and prepare to be cross-examined by congressmen and women. So I have to put that work in, but it's not as much work as if I went to DC by myself and tried to figure out how to support a piece of legislation. That would require a lot more work up front. Whereas with the organizations that I partner with, they're in DC and vetting every bit of legislation that's going through Congress and through the Senate, and they can help vet things and let us know what we can help with. So
I see.
We've let them know that we're interested, but they let us know where we can fit in and be part of that political activism.
Gotcha. Okay, great. And then I want to kind of flip it around now. This is, we've been talking a little about your personal and specific impact on the greater. When we talk about leading an organization, I'll be honest with you, as I was doing my research yesterday, I was really pleasantly surprised, but still surprised nonetheless at the level of advocacy that you have. I mean, along the lines of Patagonia, in my estimation. And so
We're
great.
not quite there. They've got more resources on the advocacy.
For sure.
I aspire to be like Patagonia.
For sure. I think all of us do, but I think when you look at in the journey, and then when you look at the number of businesses that are out there that are doing this level of advocacy work, you're definitely closer to up there than the most of us. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think oftentimes we get overwhelmed as business owners on how to do it well, because of course you have to have a profitable business. Otherwise, it doesn't matter what your advocacy work is at the end of the day, if they don't line up and they don't work together. And so as part of that, when you are guiding a company along, and I'm assuming that there's a lot of enrollment with your team, you have, maybe I'm making a bad assumption, but how do you enroll the rest of your company in the efforts that you're doing? Do you have committees? Do people come forward? Maybe talk a little bit about that culture and how it kind of turns into something bigger than just selling a product.
Well, I think that's twofold. So I think everything from when we hire a new person into our community, we talk about our mission-based activities, what's important to us, how we run our business.
Mm-hmm.
And we look for people who are inspired to work for a business that has a purpose to have a positive impact in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so already when people enter into our community, they're somewhat on board for that type of company. And then we do have committees. We have diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. We've had at different times a green team environmental committee. We've had people who have come up and made recommendations of things that we can do as a company that we've been able to enact either in ways that we treat our employees through kind of unique benefit programs or through ways that we're engaging in the community. We offer paid volunteer time to each of our employees. So there are a number of ways that we support our employees in being activists on their own or through engaging them around mission-based work that we do as a company.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And when you think back, this might be, everybody has a hard time with this. I'm going to suspect that this will be even harder for you. But is there any like one or two moments that you can look back on and go, I am most proud that this happened within our organization because it allowed whatever to happen? Do you have any of those that you'd like to kind of elevate right now?
Well, I'd say from a external policy work, I was most proud to pass benefit corp legislation.
Yes, congrats on that.
To reincorporate our business and put our mission and principles into our articles of incorporation, and to really, be able to say that our purpose for being in business is not to maximize profits and return earnings to shareholders, but our purpose has an environmental and a social component to it. And so that, I think, just felt good from a core level, and to be able to share that with our employees, that we have that different purpose, that we don't take profits out of the business, that we reinvest it back in the business. When we do profit sharing, we do profit sharing equally amongst all of our employees, including the owners, which would just treat ourselves as employees in that case. So that I think was really impactful. And in terms of one thing that we do, and this isn't a time point, but just something that we have here that I think is really impactful, is I mentioned the free organic lunch every day. And I think that's one of the things that really sets us apart. And also over the years has been a huge community driver. And it's been really hard during the pandemic to have lunches feel separate and go in shifts and be distanced from people. But even so, that core central place that we have every day where people from different departments can connect, I think is one of the most important things we can do internally for our company culture and for people to develop a sense of community.
Well, we've talked a lot about your advocacy work and your culture. I want to talk a little bit about product before we start to wrap up. You guys have been busy, and I wonder if there's anything in particular that you were most excited to share when you were at Expo, or if there's something coming up that you want people to keep their eyes peeled for.
Well, what I was most excited about Expo is that we're launching a rebrand. And so as a legacy 25-year-old company, we've developed products over the years, and each one as a family member, I love every product. I love the way they look currently. And I also recognize that we have an evolution to go through, and that as a company that makes incredible products, there's kind of a shifting perception on how people look at products and how they understand the quality of the product inside. Part of that is in the product packaging. And so starting with our sunscreens, which is our number one category of products.
Yes, we're big fans. We are.
And we'll be rebranding each of them, but to different degrees. So if you notice, our sunscreens don't have the badger on them. They're a little bit different. They have different ecological scenes. We work with an environmental illustrator and created different scenes that connected with the product, coral reef art and the baby sea turtle on the baby sunscreen. And so each of the arts are really just really beautiful and connect with the product. And we simplified the packaging and tried to really highlight the things that were most important. And so some of the products will still have the badgers on it. Some of them will have even, the same art, but they'll, throughout the next 2 years, we're going to be going through each product line, touching each of them, making sure that they really feel cohesive and represent the product inside.
Yeah. Well, as a longtime purchaser of the Badger brands, sunscreen and lip balm, and we have a couple of other things. I want to say the original product too is in the house somewhere floating around. I'll miss the kind of iconic badge, but you're right. I mean, that's me personally, but then also as a brand marketer, I also know that the audience is changing and sometimes you have to modernize. And it is a tricky balance to make sure you keep the heritage, but still be able to talk to a new audience. I appreciate that challenge. Wow. Well, Rebecca, I'm enjoying our conversation. Our time is almost up, and I like to ask 3 questions of every guest. So I usually customize the first set of questions, and these last 3, everybody gets the same. So the first one is, what is one fact about your product, brand, or industry that you would like everybody to remember from this time?
Product, brand, or industry?
Yeah, it's pretty big. I call it a cocktail. Now I forgot, it's escaped my brain. Like something that you share with your friends, so for example, one of my first guests told me that the percentage of lipstick sales shortly after COVID happened went up something like 200% or something like that, because it was an easy fix and women were looking at themselves in Zoom all day long. And so the sales just went up. So it could be something like that, or it could be an ingredient focused or something like that.
Well, I'd say just about our products, something that I'm most proud of is how simple they are. Our sunscreen is 3 core ingredients with, essential oil or extract in making them different, but, and we make them, which is actually incredibly rare when it comes to sunscreen. Nobody in their right mind makes sunscreen. So
yeah, a lot. Yeah. It's mostly command, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about any other women leaders or rising stars in our industry that you would like to elevate for the work that they're doing right now.
Well, I don't know if you've seen at the trade show the green scarf girls.
No.
The women walk around the trade show wearing all black with green scarves.
No.
So my advisor from college, Cynthia Barstow, who's a marketing professor there, teaches marketing in the natural products industry. She started an organization called Protect Our Breasts. And she has chapters in colleges all over the country, but she has a group of students that she'll bring. These are the best of the best. She'll bring to the trade show every year. And these students learn the ins and outs of our industry, and they think about things from how do you protect women from getting breast cancer through the choices they make when they're at college age, or, before childbearing age, by the products they're choosing that don't have carcinogenic or endocrine disruptors in them. And so these women are just brilliant and really well trained. And after they graduate, they go into our industry more often than not. And so I see these as potential rising stars because they come in at kind of that young age, even though they're not part of a family brand, and learn the industry from the safety perspective. And they bring a really high degree of ethic and understanding that's not usual for people just starting out in our industry.
Interesting. I love that. So this is your college professor is this the one from Hawaii?
From UMass Amherst Eisenberg School of Management.
Okay. And what's her name again?
Cynthia Barstow.
All right. We're going to give her a little love, Cynthia.
Is, Protect Our Breasts.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay.
Great woman to feature on this as well, just for work in our industry.
Yes, I would. Maybe you can make that introduction for me. That would be wonderful. Thank you. Okay. And my last question is, what brand or trends do you have your eye on right now, and why?
Well, being mostly a sunscreen company, I have my eye on the mineral sunscreen trend, which is just blowing up. We've had, in the last few years, when Badger started making mineral sunscreen back in 2005, there were maybe 2 other mineral brands on the market in the US. Now, every major company from Banana Boat to Neutrogena has a mineral sunscreen. And that whole side of sunscreen is just completely evolving and changing and growing. And so it's a interesting and exciting trend to watch. And there's different regulatory changes, from coral reef legislation to the FDA making different decisions. So it's definitely a hot spot to follow in our industry.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. Well, we've been talking with Rebecca Hamilton, co-CEO at Badger Company. Rebecca, where can people learn more about you and Badger?
We can go to our website, which is badgerbomb.com. Probably our best place to start.
Yeah. Yes. And if you guys go there, please make sure, you can, go see the products, but go take a look at the impact Badger is having right now in our industry, and then in our environment, in just culturally in general. You will just be thrilled and happy. So make sure you check that part out. Well, I'm going to thank you so much for your time today. Happy to have met you and spent time with you. I'll be curious to watch what comes next. And I also want to thank all of you listeners for your time today. If you like this episode, please make sure to share it with a friend. Otherwise, have a great day, everybody, and we'll catch you next time on the Gooder Podcast.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe and share with your network. Until next time, be well and do gooder.